What is going on, everyone? So today is Friday. The market just closed and a lot of stocks this week had some very nice gains. We had our first 4-day streak of winning in the stock market since January. It's been rough seas out there. There's been a lot of sell-off, a lot of fear in the market, and to see the market actually going up has been quite nice. We also know that quantum computer stocks have been performing well all week. We're going to take a look at quantum stocks. We know that Google reported last night, and Google has their Google Willow chip, which actually started a quantum frenzy in December of 2024, where a lot of stocks related to quantum computers went on a massive run. And we're going to talk about Google. We're going to talk about QBTS, which is D-Wave. We're going to talk about Rigetti, and we're going to talk about IonQ. We're going to look at all the charts and the price action. So I hope you all are buckled in. And you know what? As a bonus, we're also going to look at BigBear.ai and talk about BigBear.ai for just a minute. So I hope you guys are all buckled in. We're going to do this all in about 15 minutes, give or take. All right, guys. So I have the stock heat map for the day pulled up here. And I like to look at it after the market closes just to kind of get a feel for what sectors did well, and especially tech, since a lot of my investments are around tech. Let's take a look. Tech did really well today. Microsoft was up, Google was up, Meta, Nvidia, Amazon, and Tesla. Tesla had a 10% day because of basically relaxed regulations for their robotaxis. So seeing some administrative from the government saying, yeah, we're going to make this easier for robotaxis to get on the road and cut some of that regulation. Let's take a look also at our quantum watch list. So we see that Skywater, who's a chip fabricator for D-Wave, had another nice day. They've actually had a very nice week at 5.7% on the day. QUBT was at 2.7, D-Wave was at 2.38, IonQ was at 1.87, Google 1.68, and we see that for the most part, our quantum watch list was green, with the exception of Intel, who reported earnings, and Wall Street didn't really like what they heard in those earnings. So we've never looked at Google's chart before on the channel, and Google is, we have to give Google a lot of credit, because I was thinking about this last night, and I'm thinking, Google they make so many things that add so much value to the world, like Google Drive, Google Cloud, Google is YouTube, right? Where you're watching this right now, and where you probably get a lot of other information about the stock market and anything else you're interested in. I think YouTube Premium is one of the best deals. I use YouTube Premium more than all of the streaming services combined. It's like once you subscribe to things you're interested in, the content that's out there is insane. And on the earnings call, they were saying something like 20 million videos are uploaded a day on YouTube, which is insane. And not only that, they have Waymo. They have a huge investment, like 80% in Waymo. Driverless cars, they seem to be establishing a pretty good foothold there. And they have search, obviously, AI. The list goes on and on and on. And then we saw their earnings, and they actually beat the Wall Street's consensus estimate of $2.01 EPS, up from 189. So they beat by a significant amount. And the revenue also was a beat on expectation. And CEO Sundar says, we're pleased with our strong Q1 results, which reflect healthy growth and momentum across the business. The company has also announced a repurchase authorization of $70 billion stock buyback, essentially. So what is going on in Google's chart? Let's take a look. And really, what I like to do is I just like to look to the left, and we're gonna see kind of where we were in this rally in 2024. So we're just gonna draw a line from the top to the top here, from the bottom to the top, and we can see that after their Google Willow announcement, which was right around here, investors really loved. They really in December, right? We had the Google Willow announcement, and that was December 9th, and investors loved that Google was in the quantum trade, and they gap up and they hold this new price level around 190 for multiple weeks. And then they started even climbing further than that. And then in this very challenging macro environment, they've sold off considerably. If we want to measure this move for Google from the very top, we're going to take away this line and we're going to measure this move. There's a 30% sell-off from the top to the bottom. Now we're going to get in a little closer and look at the last 5 days, and we can see we've gapped up, and every single trading day, there's been renewed optimism in the wider market, lots of buyback with tech in general. So looking promising for potential reversal. What are some key levels to look at as far as Google? And what I thought was interesting is that Google opened today at this 163 level and actually sold down to 161. So we can see that gap up after they reported the insanely good earnings, and they closed at about 161. So is this a good buy point, and what are some critical levels for Google? Let's take a look at that. And if we look at the larger trend, Google seems to like to roll, seems to be in one of its troughs here, and it doesn't seem to move up super cleanly if we look at historically, but it is at, if we draw a line here, I think that 170 number, it is rejected off of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a number of times. So 170 is going to be a level to watch. And then the next level, I think, would be 182. And then, of course, we're getting into back into the peak of the bull run, which would be 200. And it did actually break up above 200 for a couple trading days. Is there any indication from the financials in Google that they are not going to continue to make a shit ton of money and grow? No, I mean, I think they're not even really affected that much by the tariffs, which we heard on the earnings call. So if we look at it from that perspective, what's the potential upside if we're just to simply recover? We're looking at 23% potential upside. So let's talk a little bit about potential movement from here. So we could see it come down, reject, something like that. In the most bullish case, we could also see something like this, and we could see further sell-off back to looks like this 140, 130 level of support if macro is to turn against the favor of the market, which it has really not been favorable macro. So definitely watch those 170, 180, and 201 levels on Google. I'm personally looking at upsizing my position in Google and potentially downsizing my position in NVIDIA because I don't really like the leadership, how NVIDIA has talked about quantum stocks, and B, I really like everything that Google does. And they are also a quantum player and one of the leaders in the quantum space. So it just makes sense for me in my portfolio. So I'm looking at pretty much anything in this 170 and under, even up to 175, 180 as a potential buy channel for myself. All right, let's take a look at IonQ. And so there's some shenanigans this morning with IonQ. We've covered IonQ a lot lately. And actually, if we look back at the last 5 days, we have been seeing explosive movement at market opens. So we see it here. We've seen gap up. Definitely a good positive uptrend. If we just draw a line from our bottoms and connect some, we see rising support. And what's happening here this morning, a lot of volume came in. First thing, they pumped this all the way up to 31, 32, and then immediately sold it off. And I think this was kind of a potentially a little bit of a bull trap if investors were expecting another 10% move like yesterday. There's a little bit of a rug pull there. But if we look at the day, after that sell-off, it did recover nicely. And it did actually post, I'm going to clear my drawings here. It did actually post a 1.8% gain on the day. So it closed in the green, even after kind of a little bit of the pump and dump early in the day. So IonQ posts 4 days in a row, and it does seem we've identified on this channel a couple times this critical level here at this 26 or so. Let's draw a line. And we are well past that level now. So now we're starting to look at some of these next levels like 3090. And looks like there's a pretty clear one here. So that interestingly enough, the top of that wick was that 3090. And if we reset here, we can see that IonQ historically has rejected off of this particular level a few times. So we're still in a bullish trend and definitely a potential reversal. There's still a lot of ground to make up on IonQ. It is definitely not out of the woods. We could see something like this, a rejection, double rejection, and then down further. We know that this was the bottom, the new bottom that was created in these macro conditions, but we'd like to see it get back here into the 35s, 40s, 45s, and then its all-time high was about 54. So we'd like to see continued uptrend here, but that's going to depend a lot on the macro environment and tech in general. If tech can continue rallying, then quantum should also rally with tech. All right, so QBTS ended today with a modest 2.4% gain. I want to look to the left a little bit here. And we know that earnings are coming up for QBTS. And I think investors are starting to get curious because we know that D-Wave guided for 4x what the street was expecting. So if this is a big if D-Wave is able to deliver on their own forward guidance, right? We know here there was the quantum supremacy claim. We know here there was also the stock halt and just a meteoric rise when in earnings they reported this increased income. So we drew these levels at 756, and it looks like we have met a little bit of resistance there. We're going to look for hopefully this rally to continue next week. And the next level up would be something like that 778. So we could see something like a rejection and then up to the next level of 930. We could also see in the bear case something like this and down to the next level of support, which would be down here. So unlikely that it's going to go and retest its lows just because earnings are coming up so quickly. And a lot of these tech companies are reporting good earnings. So keep D-Wave on your watch list. There's a lot of potential upside here. Let's see if we can kind of measure out what that would look like. So if we were to just take today to the previous earnings, that's a 57% gain there. And let's look back at a year and we can see that there's a pretty clear rising support level. So we're going to want to keep our eye on this rising support where it does seem that QBTS is in a very bullish trend. It is going to depend heavily on macro if it can continue in this trend. All right, and then let's look at Rigetti, and we're going to finish this video off with BigBear.ai. Rigetti, if we look to the left, we know at one point we were trading at 21, and we're still pretty range bound in this channel here. I don't want to create a new order. I want to draw a line. So we're down here, and really for me to start getting more bullish on Rigetti in the short term, I'd like to see it blast through this 1036 level. We could see it bounce around. So we could see it reject, come down, reject, test the bottom. And when I say range bound, I mean, it's been, if we look back all the way to February for 2 months, it's been hanging around the $7 to $10. So if it breaks through 1035, then watch Rigetti to the upside. Let's look at the day chart and see if there were any shenanigans today. Looks like there was a gap down actually here, and then buyers stepped in and pushed up. A little bit of volatility in the morning, and then an IonQ like buy in and sell off. So definitely some early morning volatility today. Do we see potentially a flag being formed here? Some consolidation that does look like a pretty classic bull flag. I'm going to draw this. I'm going to draw the pole here. And could we see it go up from here? Macro, macro, macro. If we can stay in positive sentiment, then potentially we could see that go up. Finally, BigBear.ai has been a roller coaster. If you love roller coasters, you probably love Big Bear. So today, if we go actually all the way back, if we look at Big Bear's stock historically, it is no stranger to big moves. Even since its IPO, it's come up to $6 a couple of times, $4. And then we really had the real rally with lots of volume here where we had that 50% move in one day. And Big Bear for a moment touched $10. Now we're looking at we have earnings coming up with Big Bear. Let's take a look at when those earnings are. And we also had a piece of news. So from Big Bear, they are to power Austal USA's next-gen submarine construction using AI and digital twins. So Big Bear, a leading provider of AI-powered decision intelligence for defense and national security, announced it will deploy this power-heavy manufacturer planning and production platform for Austal USA. And this actually came out yesterday morning. And Big Bear did good yesterday, but it didn't do great. It didn't have this huge move that it had today. So we're going to look at the day chart, but I also want to show you BigBear.ai earnings date. So earnings are coming up on May 1st. I want to verify that. Scheduled for May 1st. So Big Bear is earnings are coming up. Let's look at the day chart. And this wasn't a gap up or an explosion. This was just kind of enthusiastic buying on volume all day. And if we look at the move, it was a pretty outstanding move. So Friday at open to its top, we saw 26% move with a little bit of sell off. I think traders, day traders and such were getting out at the end of the day. But even we're seeing just bullish direction, lots of bullish candles all through the day. Definitely a rising support. And, it's hard to say if Big Bear is out of the woods. There's definitely going to be some headwinds. In fact, they're really close to a major resistance, which would be this 380 level. And then if we look back historically from this last run up, 472 has been a major area of resistance. So we'd want to see a clean break through both of these if we're going to want to see this type of upside. So what could we theoretically see? Let's go back down to the day. Lots and lots of volume. That's something to always keep your eye on in these stocks. Like this is just huge volume, even when you compare for the last 6 trading days. So what happens next? Well, I've said it 8 times in this video, and I'm going to say it again. It depends on macro. Small cap stocks are very sensitive to macro and overall sentiment. So if macro worsens, we could see it come down, bounce up, come down, and then in the bear case, go down to its recent lows. In a bullish case, we'd want to see it break through and then use this 380 as support and move up further. And it most likely will reject here at that 472 level. But for us to get into the nosebleeds for Big Bear, we're going to need to see either good quarterlies or just ongoing good sentiment. So what are some potential catalysts for Big Bear? New deals. So if they announce any new deals before earnings, good earnings would be amazing because they didn't do that great in their last earnings. What else would be a great catalyst? Trade deal, which would boost the whole market and bring up the Russell 2000 and a lot of these small cap stocks. A Fed rate cut would also just push up the whole market, and Big Bear would go along for the ride. So really, then the question would be, is this a good buy point? And is this a bearish or bullish setup for Big Bear? I've owned Big Bear for a while, and Big Bear is an exciting stock to own, but it can also be quite frustrating. And you do have to be careful with Big Bear. If you go into a stock like this and you want to do your research, we know that right now Big Bear is in the has some frivolous lawsuits that these come up from time to time for small cap companies. Lawyers are looking for a quick buck, and they create class action lawsuits. And so Big Bear is going through a little bit of that right now. They had to clean up their financials recently, and Big Bear hasn't been a gem, but the upside potential for Big Bear is that it's maybe something like a Palantir, like a baby little Palantir, where there's a lot of demand for AI and it's in the right space, it's in the right technology, and it's at the right time with the right administration. So there's some long-term appeal there for the long-term investor and even the trader. It's hard to say. It really needs to get through 389 and 472 for me to really think this is truly a bullish setup. But it's very possible based on the way that Big Bear has moved in the past. So I hope you found all of this enjoyable. We just covered 5 stocks in depth. It went a little longer than I thought it would, but I wanted to do a good job here for y'all. If I've earned it, and only if I've earned it, please consider leaving a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I cover quantum stocks all the time, and I cover stocks like SoFi, Google, and other stocks in the market on occasion. So definitely interested to hear your thoughts on these last 4 days. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a great weekend.